The courtroom was silent, too silent. Only the faint ticking of the antique wall clock broke the tension. Then came the voice, sharp and clear. "You call that neutrality, Senator?" Jasmine Crockett stood, calm but unshakable, her voice slicing through the silence like a gavel. Across the courtroom, J.D. Vance shifted in his seat, eyebrows arched, a faint smirk playing on his lips. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowly rose, buttoning his jacket with deliberate ease. "Congresswoman Crockett," he said coolly, "this isn't a Sunday sermon. It's a court of law. Maybe you forgot where you are." A few quiet gasps rippled through the public benches. The judge didn't intervene. The air was heavy, charged, like everyone knew something was about to erupt. Jasmine took one step forward, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She raised her hand, not to silence, but to clarify. "I'm fully aware, Senator," she replied, voice steady. "And what I witnessed in this courtroom today wasn't law. It was theater disguised as jurisprudence. The issue at hand was a simple one, at least on paper. A public school teacher in Ohio, suspended for wearing a small silver cross necklace during class. She wasn't preaching. She wasn't distributing pamphlets. She simply wore her cross, and someone complained. The district said it violated neutrality laws. The lawsuit escalated quickly, drawing national attention. J.D. Vance had arrived in support of the district. Jasmine? She was there for the teacher. And now, both were in the same room, under oath, facing off in a constitutional challenge. J.D. Vance turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I must remind the court that we're not here to debate personal expressions of faith. We're here to determine whether the school board's decision aligns with federal neutrality standards." He spoke like a man certain of the ground beneath him. His tone polished. His posture rehearsed. But Jasmine didn't blink. "Neutrality," she repeated. "Is it really neutrality when we tell a woman she can't wear a symbol of her faith, but say nothing when another wears a rainbow pin or a peace sign?" There was a murmur in the gallery. Not outrage, recognition. She stepped closer to the bench. "If this is neutrality, Senator, then it's selective neutrality. And selective neutrality is just bias in a better suit." JD's expression flickered for the first time. Not enough to look shaken, but just enough to know the blow had landed. The judge cleared his throat. "Let's remember, this is a hearing, not a campaign stage." Jasmine nodded respectfully. "Yes, Your Honor. But I'm not campaigning. I'm defending a woman who spent 32 years teaching science to kids who didn't believe in themselves. And now you want to tell her she can't believe in anything." For a moment, the courtroom held its breath. She turned to JD again. "You say this isn't a sermon. Fine. But maybe, just maybe, it should be a reminder. That liberty doesn't mean silencing faith. It means making room for it." The judge looked down, fidgeting with his glasses. JD looked away. But the crowd, the older woman in the back row gripping her rosary, the veteran sitting tall with his cross tattoo peeking from his sleeve, they were listening. And they weren't moving. As the courtroom regained its breath, the judge leaned forward, visibly unsettled but trying to project control. "Let's move forward with the statements," he ordered, signaling the school district's counsel to proceed. J.D. Vance, however, subtly raised a hand. "With the court's permission, I'd like to clarify my position." The judge gave a hesitant nod. J.D. turned slowly toward the gallery, his voice confident, calm, almost professorial. "This is not a debate about faith itself. It is about the boundaries between church and state. Our children deserve education without indoctrination, of any kind." He paused deliberately. "And neutrality, Congresswoman, is not about equal symbols. It's about protecting the public sphere from becoming a battleground of belief." There was light applause from the defense side. A few heads nodded. But Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. She leaned on the plaintiff's table, scanning the crowd before speaking. "Let me ask this," she said, gesturing toward the teacher sitting quietly behind her. "If Mrs. Daniels were a Star of David, would we be here? If she wore a crescent or a yin-yang or a feather in her hair, would that student have felt unsafe? Or is this about the cross alone?" There was a ripple of murmurs. JD didn't answer, but the judge asked the room for silence. Jasmine took the moment to build. "This isn't just a legal case," she continued. "It's a cultural thermometer. It's testing whether America still knows the difference between a belief and a threat. Because if a necklace becomes dangerous, what's next? A Bible in a locker? A prayer whispered before a test?" The courtroom was dead quiet. JD stepped forward again, more forceful now. "Symbols matter, Representative. If we open this door, what stops a teacher from wearing controversial political slogans next? Where's the line? Jasmine smiled faintly. The line, Senator, is common sense. And respect. We can't let fear of offense justify erasure of identity. She turned to the judge. Mrs. Daniels didn't preach. She didn't coerce. She didn't even mention her beliefs in class. But because a cross rested on her collarbone, suddenly she's out of line. JD's jaw tightened. That's a convenient simplification. But rules are in place to protect the whole, not the few. No, Jasmine said firmly, her voice steady. Rules should protect the few, too. That's why they're called rights. A low of agreement rumbled from the gallery. It wasn't just about Mrs. Daniels anymore. The case had evolved into something larger, something symbolic. The hearing was being streamed live now. News tickers were already rolling. Religious freedom battle in Ohio. Crockett and Vance clash in court. Social media lit up. In rural churches, pastors replayed the clip of Jasmine's last line. In liberal cafes, some criticized her as being too soft on the separation line. But in the courtroom, it wasn't about politics. It was about a woman who had done her job for decades, and a country deciding if quiet faith had a place in public life. Jasmine, sensing the weight of the moment, spoke one final time before recess. Senator Vance says this is about boundaries. I say it's about dignity. And if we keep drawing legal boundaries so tightly that human dignity can't breathe, we'll wake up one day and find liberty locked outside. No applause this time. Just stillness. And respect. The judge called a recess. JD gathered his notes. Jasmine stayed seated, eyes closed, collecting herself. Outside, a crowd had begun to gather. Reporters, pastors, students, veterans, a few activists from both sides. The air was heavy, but so was the hope. Something bigger was happening. The courtroom reconvened under the weight of a nation watching. The judge, now more solemn than earlier, shuffled through his notes before looking up. This case presents a complex intersection of personal expression and public responsibility. Before I deliver my ruling, I'll allow both sides one final statement. JD Vance rose first, straightening his posture. His voice was polished, as always, but now carried a sharpened edge. Your Honor, we must not lose sight of precedent. The First Amendment guarantees religious freedom, but it does not allow public employees to endorse religion on public time. That's the line. If we fail to uphold that line, we invite confusion, division, and ultimately inequality. He turned slightly toward Jasmine, a trace of weariness in his expression. Faith is personal, and it should stay that way, especially when young minds are involved. He sat down without looking back at her. The judge nodded. Congresswoman Crockett. Jasmine stood slowly. She didn't bring notes. She didn't need them. Your Honor, she began, steady and calm. The First Amendment doesn't just protect religion from government. It protects individuals from having to check their identity at the door. Mrs. Daniels didn't preach. She didn't proselytize. She wore a necklace that represented her values. She paused. That's not coercion. That's character. The room held its breath. We teach children to be authentic, to be proud of who they are. And yet we punish someone for doing just that, quietly, respectfully, and without harm. She stepped closer to the bench. Let me be clear, if we strip meaning from harmless symbols, if we treat every expression of faith as a threat, then we are no longer neutral. We're hostile. A murmur of agreement echoed behind her. JD didn't move. Jasmine's final words were softer, but somehow heavier. The law should be a shield for the minority, not a sword for the majority. And if today we fail to protect quiet faith, tomorrow we may fail to protect quiet dissent. She returned to her seat. The judge leaned back in his chair, visibly wrestling with the implications. Then finally he spoke. After reviewing the facts, the precedents, and the constitutional principles involved, this court finds that the school district acted in excess of what neutrality requires. Mrs. Daniels' suspension is hereby lifted. She is to be reinstated with full back pay. Gasps. A few scattered claps before the bailiff raised a hand. But it wasn't about the courtroom anymore. It was about the ripple. News broke immediately. Crockett secures major win for religious liberty. JD Vance's line in the sand washed away? Cable news played clips from the hearing all day. JD left quietly through a side door. No press conference. Jasmine exited through the front. Outside, she was met not by campaign donors or party operatives, but by people. An older man in a Vietnam veteran cap tipped his head. A woman in a floral headscarf offered a silent nod. A teenager with braces gave her a thumbs up. Thank you, someone said quietly. Jasmine smiled but said nothing, because it wasn't about her. It was about the cross, the choice, the right to wear it without fear. It was about the line J.D. Vance drew, and the one Jasmine Crockett redrew with courage, conviction, and the Constitution as her compass. That day, justice was served. But more importantly, something even rarer was restored: faith in the freedom to believe.